My name is Sam Davidson. I'm the CEO here at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and I'm glad you're here. Raise your hand if it's your first time here at the EC. Awesome. Great. Welcome. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. Awesome. Welcome home. So the EC wants to position we work hard to be the home for Nashville entrepreneurs. We exist to help make Nashville the best place to start and grow a business by increasing the likelihood of success for entrepreneurs. We do that in a lot of ways, including a co-working space, an active advisor network, but also through events like these. So before we leave today, I'll share with you some of the events we have coming up, but I'm really excited for today's topic. It's something that if it's ever been done here before, it has not been done in a long time. But with what we see our mission as, in increasing the likelihood of success, it's talking about stuff like this that our panel is going to cover today. So we're glad you're here. Real quick, we want to highlight some of the folks who make events like this possible. So our community partner this year is Dell for Startups. Here's a quick message.
That's ready. What's your game plan? It's nurturing the ideas that drive you with critical expertise from startup tech advisors. It's empowering your brainstorms and breakthroughs with top technology powered by Windows 11 Pro that allows you to follow your vision and share your story. It's maintaining a stop-at-nothing attitude as you manage it all with the confidence of a strong partnership supporting you. Are you ready to get growing? Join Dell for Startups today.
Big thank you to Dell for being our community partner, helping us. If you have any technology questions, let us know and we can put you in touch with Dell and our partners there. Today is also possible through the generous donation of our growth partners. So the EC, we have partners who not just want to help us grow, but want to help you, our entrepreneurs, grow. So if you ever have questions about banking, accounting, or technology, again, allow us to connect you with our growth partners in those areas. Pinnacle when it comes to banking, CLA when it comes to accounting, and RJ Young when it comes to technology. They're also partners with folks in our accelerator programs, which I see some folks here today who are active in those right now. It's always exciting. Thank you guys for coming out as well. Well, let's talk about mental health. We said we were, so let's do it. So I'm going to ask Neal and Melissa to come up and grab a seat, and they're going to introduce themselves. But I've been here for 7 months as CEO. Prior to that, I was an entrepreneur for 17 years. And I didn't have my first panic attack until after I had sold my company. What was supposed to be a successful, relaxing time with me kind of fading out as a minority owner, shareholder, still overseeing things. It was supposed to be easy, and it actually got harder. And so it's something that I understand what it means to try to grow a company and all of the stresses that come with that, and being a person. So again, we're the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. And I make that distinction because we want to make sure that you, the entrepreneur, has the resources you need to be the person that you need to be for your company, for your family, for your community, for who you are. So that's why we're tackling this topic today. And every time I bring it up, I get a lot of people say like, yes, absolutely, yeah, this is hard, this is stressful, this is affecting me mentally, balancing this. So we're going to unpack a lot of this. So I'll turn it over first to Neal and then to Melissa just to introduce themselves. Tell us why you think you're here. I mean, you're here because I asked you, but your unique vantage point when it comes to entrepreneurship and mental health. Yes, press the button.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hey everyone, I'm Neal, and I have two companies. One's a group therapy practice here in Nashville. We have a bunch of clinicians. We see people all over Nashville. And then the other company is called Entrecare, where we partner with organizations, VC firms, any community of entrepreneurs, and provide mental health services and therapist matching to their community of entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, that's what I do. But before that, I was a former marketing executive for a few years. And my very first business several years ago was a marketing consulting company. And I ended up shutting that down. Didn't know why. It bothered me, but I just felt burned out, even though I wasn't like super busy. I just felt that the business wasn't sustainable for me. And so I became a CMO and worked job for years. And over time, in the back of my mind, I was like, why did I shut that business down? And I realized it was because I had these psychological blocks that I couldn't really get past. And the only option for me was to shut that business down in order for me to feel happy and fulfilled with life. And so I was like, you know what? I want to completely change industries, get out of the marketing industry, and go into mental health. I'm going to start a group therapy practice, and then I'm going to start another company that's all about helping entrepreneurs improve their mental health, and that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. Melissa, tell us about yourself.
Hey everyone. Okay, first of all, I want to thank you and the Entrepreneur Center for having me here today. And then also, I just want us to kind of take a breath, check in with your mind, check in with your posture, because I do think we have a lot of things going on outside of this. And I know for me, I speak on an individual level, and so this can be tough for me. But also, I feel like I'm here because I can see, well, let me back up. Okay, so I'm an owner of Reinventing Hope Counseling, and I'm new to Nashville from Florida, and I work with individuals who tend to, with trauma, anxiety, tend to hold it together for everyone else outside of themselves. So I work with a lot of business owners, healthcare personnel, and just individuals that struggle with trauma and, like I said, being there for themselves. So personally, I got into this work. I've lost both of my parents. I had a divorce. I had my own childhood trauma. And so I think I'm so excited to be here today, and my hope is that can give some kind of insight I didn't have. I would have, years ago, before my journey, I would be the one sitting there saying, this isn't for me. I don't need self-care. I don't need mental health. I don't need nobody. I don't need anybody. And so, yeah, my hope is to give more insight, and I'm glad to be here, and yeah.
Awesome. And Neal and Melissa have both offered that the conversation doesn't end today, so you've got some
Yes.
sheets of paper on your table with how to get in touch with them, some other resources that they have recommended to take with you out of here. So be sure to grab one of those. That is a resource we're also going to keep around this building. So for those of you who are members or in and out of here frequently, that's going to be something that we want to make accessible as well. So let's start off. Neal, you answer this first, and then on Melissa. Mental health has always seemed to have some kind of a stigma. That for a long time, and hopefully things are changing, but for a long time, it wasn't something we talked about. That when someone needs to speak to a professional or have ongoing therapy or counseling, it just wasn't brought up a lot. You couple that, just a general stigma, with the myth, and I'll call it a myth because it's not true, but the myth that entrepreneurs are supposed to be the most resilient of the most resilient. This is all up to you. You got to work hard. You got to get up early, stay up late. You got to grind it out. It's going to be hard. You get told no a lot, but hey, if you don't have what it takes, then find another job. So it seems like we've got a double whammy here of you don't talk about mental health to begin with, and you especially don't talk about it if you're an entrepreneur. Give me your takes on that, thoughts on that, and why you hope or ways you're seeing people move beyond that.
Yeah, great question. So first off, I think we have to really learn the facts about mental health. You know, there was a study in 2015 that said that 72% of entrepreneurs have stated that they have mental health concerns. So this is a predominant issue. This isn't just something that's happening to you or in your head. This is something that is a shared experience for entrepreneurs. And another thing too, I would say, I think that the reason why the stigma holds true for us is because we're prioritizing something that doesn't need to be prioritized in our life, whether that's reputation, image, ego, or just maybe admitting that something hurts in your life. You know, a lot of people, they don't want to do the work because there's so much work to admit that the pain is real. You see, if you see a mental health professional, you almost have to admit that something hurts in your life, and you have to acknowledge it, and you have to spend time on it, right? And so because of that, they kind of want to bury the pain and bury mental health behind the stigma and uphold that stigma for themselves, when really the way to get past the pain is to just let the stigma fade away, let go of it, whatever value it's giving you, just let that go and start to open up about the things that you're facing. Because again, this is a pervasive problem. More people are struggling with something than just you. And it's more likely that people are struggling in today's chaotic world than it is that they're doing just fine. You know, we had the pandemic years ago, we had all the stuff with the economy and all the business pressure. Like, it's more common that we're going through something, and I don't think we have to hide that and uphold that stigma for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a hard question to answer because I think we come from a culture, or a lot of times my client's family, of do more, be more. I was good enough because of what I did. Like, think of in your life when you got rewarded as a kid. And a lot of times I have people, it's like, I rewarded because I got A's, because I did things. I wasn't just, hey, you're just amazing for you. And so I think, and then we have this culture and this idea that we have to prove ourselves, and vulnerability is a weakness. And I think also social media adds to that, or even thinking about our businesses, like what we're selling. We don't say, hey, I'm selling this, but also like I failed this many times. We don't talk about that, right? And so I think also, I was thinking about this earlier, that also like with planning or being proactive about yourself, who taught us that, right? I wasn't taught that. I was taught comparison and judgment. And, oh, well, that's the standard. Getting A's is the standard. And so I think, so the culture that we come from, the culture that we're in, but I think looking at the facts, I think Sam might share some of this study Tina did, but just the actual facts around what people in the Entrepreneur Center are facing. And I think if we look at facts, like Neal said, as far as, I think it's like $1 trillion of productivity is lost from anxiety and depression a year globally. So I think looking at that, and then also the positives, where Neal and I talked about this at one point, some of the things that we're doing, the motivation, the we can't be weak, that's gotten us resiliency in where we're at now. It's just, I would say it's coming from a place of surviving, and not really as cliche as it sounds, but thriving. And I think a lot of things are subconscious that we're doing, which we'll get into. But I think open dialogue, normalizing I'm passionate about what I do because of what I've been through, and Neal as well. So just sharing that, things like the Entrepreneur Center, I think just like parenting in business, you're modeling to your employees what you want. And so things like, we need EAP programs, which are employee assistant programs, where people come in for a couple free counseling sessions. And it's like, I don't know what this is. I think we need to identify tips, which we'll talk about, tips and different things to say, hey, it's not that you're a bad worker, you just are having concentration issues, you're stressed. Like, let's talk about it. Let me tell you about my story. And I think that's what's happening, and it's really amazing to see these podcasts and individuals coming out and saying, hey, I've struggled with this all my life. And you're like, what? How could you say this? Because you have all these awards or whatever it is. So I think normalizing it, just getting real about, I think even looking at your life and saying, is my business where I want it to be? If it's not, I bet there's a lot of subconscious things going on that you don't even, it's kind of like the idea where it's like, where are you putting, I want to save, but I'm doing a lot of spending. And it's like, what is my actions showing? What is the fruit of my business? And so those are some of my ideas.
Can I follow up
Yeah,
on that?
go for it.
The question that you said, the latter half, about ways that we're working through the stigma, I realize I didn't really answer that. But one of the ways that we're practically doing that inside Entrecare is we're talking all about resilience and self-awareness, that you can't reach the peak of your potential unless you're fully aware of your default thoughts, habits, motivations, where you've come from, your upbringing, but also sharpening that with resilience. And, we talked before about how resilience can be sort of a trauma response in people, but you don't really figure that out for yourself unless you do the work of investing in self-awareness. Because if resilience is this survival tactic, this trauma response, that resilience is actually going to be the thing that holds you back, that becomes a barrier for your business growth and your own growth. There's so much talk about, are you being the lid in your business? I don't know if you all are familiar with John Maxwell's, like, the law of the lid, how you are the lid to your business. And so one of the ways to raise that lid and so that your business can accomplish more is by investing in your self-awareness and upgrading your performance that way. So that's one of the ways that we've cut through the stigma. Yes, we're going to talk about mental health because that's so important, but it's all about upgrading your performance so your business can perform better.
Yeah, and that's a great point for the next question. And be thinking of questions. So we're going to turn this over to you all to ask our panelists questions here in a sec. And yeah, so Melissa mentioned Tina Phillips. So local entrepreneur did some research herself on entrepreneurs that we helped circulate, and some interesting findings. We will send that to you all, those results after this event. You'll get an email about a survey to feedback, and then we'll also give you that link. But exactly, so she found that there was this yes, we're all stressed. All of us are under pressure. The entrepreneurs that responded definitely think about those levels. But then there was that kind of correlation that you can see with this notion of effectiveness, of good enough, of expectation. Mostly that the entrepreneur was putting on himself or herself to be and hit a certain level, a certain goal. So with that in mind, Melissa, we'll start with you here. But let's talk about action, about tips. Yeah. So like we would tell any entrepreneur here, great idea. What's your next step? So, okay, we're talking about mental health. What can I do when I start to feel a certain way? Give us just a handful of these that maybe we can put into practice. But then also, what else do we need to be aware of that could be a sign of something bigger that might require more work?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm honest, the tips, there's so many tips. And so I wrote some down because if I were y'all, I would want to know, what does Melissa know? And so, but I think also just, whether it's a mentor or a therapist or whatever, just finding what you need. But if you're like me, I'm stubborn. I've pushed myself to the limits and used short-term solutions, aka like 15 brownies, and I think we can. So I came up with this idea, this acronym called RESCUE. And so is the idea that if our relationships are suffering, if we're exhausted, if we are dealing with short-term solutions, so that means drugs, alcohol, food, whatever. If we're having concentration issues, if we're feeling unrest or let's say sleep issues, and then emotional regulation. So we find ourselves being irritated or not being patient. So I would say those are the big things as far as seeking help. And Neal probably will go into this. I don't want to take this from him, but just the idea of being proactive. I will say a lot of clients come to me when they've had an illness, when they've had relationship issues. Let's not wait to that point, because that's what gets us into therapy. And the problem is we don't realize, hey, I struggle with perfectionism. Yeah, that's a defense strategy. You're not really perfectionistic. That's actually to protect from shame and judgment, and where does that come from? So I would say, and then as far as the tips, I want to encourage you all to look at the facts. A lot of my clients can be very logical. This self-care is not for me. But what do we know? Sleep, so here's some of the things I wrote down. Getting out of our comfort zone. We know that builds resiliency. Building routine, or having a routine. We know it helps with productivity and decision fatigue. Getting outside, we know it lowers stress, it helps our mood, helps us with problem solving and creativity. Let's get more sleep because we know that it helps with memory and concentration. Exercising improves mood, heart health. Laughter. I just went to a conference and they said that if you laugh, it's not only a stress reliever, but apparently if you laugh 15 minutes a day, you can lose weight. So, there's that, whatever. And then I think a big thing is knowing our escape tendencies, because when I start, again, eating 15 brownies, I know something's up, right? So whatever, and that can change per person. And I wrote a lot of things, like challenging our negative thoughts, being proactive, but it's tough when we come from, who helped us be proactive? I don't know about y'all, but I come from a background, it was like we waited until things were on fire, till we did something about it. Acknowledging our strengths. Looking at our food. I've been healthier over the years and cut out alcohol. I don't have issues with that, but I don't know what it is about gin, but I just wake up and I hate people the next day, So it's like so many things, and I just want to encourage, not like, oh, this must be nice. I think it's Brene Brown, she said, that's nice that you can do ART, but I have a JOB. Like I have a real life situations I have to do. So I come at it from, okay, what do we know though? These things happen, and I want to encourage y'all to try cutting out something, or try and walk a week. It's very often my clients start to add things. They're like, I'm feeling great. And it's like, oh, well, I've added this. Or they're like, I feel awful. Well, I haven't been going to the gym for a couple of weeks. And so those are kind of some of my ideas. There's a lot. It's just basically what would help you, and seeing somebody or taking some time to kind of slow down and say what helps me. I know in January, I started this thing from Christmas to New Year's of I'm not going to do anything, absolutely nothing. And I was surprised how much I actually got done, because I would stop and I'm going to watch a show, and then I'd get 15 minutes of something done, then 30 minutes. And I was just amazed that when you take the pressure off, and where does the pressure come from? And that's a whole nother thing. But it's just different per person. But what I say is just look at the facts. If we come from this logical standpoint to what is it showing us when you do these things? So that's kind of a little bit, but yeah.
Okay, that was so good. 3 things come to mind for me. First thing was exactly what you said. Don't wait till it's a problem. I was just, I had a speaking gig like before this, and I was speaking to a group of entrepreneurs, and I was telling them that the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to do the work, don't want to invest in their mental health, is because they don't want to slow down. And so my tip for them was that it's better to slow down. It's better to have a course correction where you change course than a forced correction, where a correction is forced upon you, which is burnout, divorce, heart attack, any of those things. But we don't do that. We don't want to slow down. We don't want to have the course correction to be able to protect from the forced correction, but a course correction is always better than a forced correction. So that's my number 1 tip is don't wait. It's much better to have a course correction. And then second thing, in our minds, we deprioritize investing in our mental health. We don't prioritize it because we think that the way to get through our problems is by doing more, throwing more things at the problem. This is how we're biologically hardwired to approach problems. Like our ancestors way back in the day, when they didn't have enough food, what they did was they went out and got more food. They got more resources, right? And so we still have that default within us where we think that more is the answer. And I think we have to realize that in our modern day society, more is what's killing us. Whether it's doing more, piling on our schedule, taking on more, it's even killing our businesses. Business owners encounter problems in their businesses, and so they throw more staff people at it, then their teams become bloated, right? And then that adds more stress and anxiety on their plate. And so we have to realize within ourselves that maybe more is not the answer. Maybe I can get through this problem by subtracting, by taking away, by slowing down, by cultivating my internal world versus throwing more at it in my external world. And so I think that's just a mindset shift for us that then leads into doing the work. And so the third thing that I have for you as a tip, I think we need to self-diagnose what the block is for us. Whenever we're feeling out of whack, when we feel like we have heightened emotions, everything is on our shoulders, we feel more stress, anxiety, we have to have a little bit of self-diagnosis of what I call performance block. What is that performance block? Is it a physical block where you're doing too much? Is it an emotional block where you're holding too much? Or is it a mental block where you're not engaged enough in the work that you're supposed to be doing? You see, the brain is meant to be engaged in what we do, but when we pile so much on our plate, we start to forget why we're doing this in the first place. And so usually when people and entrepreneurs get burned out, they experience an emotional block first, where they have all these rising stressors and anxieties, fears, and then that leads them to a physical block where they start doing more, adding more things onto their plate, overworking. That becomes like a coping response for them. And then they're doing so much work that then it becomes a mental block where they just lose purpose and why. They're like, why am I even doing this? Is it even worth it? And then all that just keeps spiraling down until it becomes a complete burnout where you feel like you have no more resources to be able to handle your problems. And so there has to be a level of self-awareness and self-diagnosis where we have to ask ourselves, okay, what's the block I'm facing here? And if you can't do that on your own, then seek out a professional. But once you understand what the block is, then we can start creating some solutions around that. Because if it's primarily a physical block, boundaries with your time. Maybe there's some things you need to say no to. Maybe some things need to be delegated. Maybe you need to look at your schedule. If it's an emotional block, what's your support network? Like, who are you going to with your problems? Like, what is filling your emotional tank, and how can you drain that emotional tank? And then if it's a mental block, is that because you have a lot of decision fatigue? Are you multitasking in your day a lot? Or is it that you aren't aligned with your future self and who you want to become in the world? You're detached from your purpose. You're detached from your values. And so we have to figure out, like, what's the block? Because there are different tips and solutions that all impact our mental health from there.
I think going with Neal too is like, I was looking at these panels behind y'all and just thinking about like what is enough. I ask clients, what is enough? And it's interesting when we kind of write it down, it ends up being, you think you have a lot to do, but let's say the purple is me and the rest is societal, family, whatever. How much of your day and your week you're filling with other people's stuff? And like, let's talk about that. Do you want to be like your mom? Do you want to be like your dad? Do you want to be, let's talk about this, And I think also Neal and I had talked about, and Sam, is the idea, I'm really big on, this is hard, I'm just going to be real with you of what I've seen of challenging the people around you. Who's your people? Because it's very often that my clients and myself, the people we surrounded with, relationships, friends, other partners, are perpetuating the same things we grew up with, of not being good enough, of I can't open up. And honestly, when we start to move into health, by the way, it's super uncomfortable. My partner now is amazing, and it's been such a journey to say, oh, I can open up and I can be real and I can trust you. And what do you mean I make mistakes? I'm not perfect. So I think also because inevitably when we come to therapy, it's like, who are we surrounding ourselves with? And that's a hard thing. I've had to lose friends, lose family relationships, and I've seen that with other clients as well. And so going back to that, and then with Neal said of like the good enough and everything we have to do in our day, really challenge you to put that down. Where does that come from? Because I guarantee sometimes we're in this cycle and we're like, I gotta move fast, but you're not going anywhere. And if we slow down and then you take all the things that aren't related to you and your business and where you want to go, then you'll actually start walking, and it's going to feel uncomfortable because you're just walking, but you're not running in the circle going nowhere. You're walking forward towards where you want to go. So
Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you all for asking your questions, for sharing your story. This is the only time we're going to address this. And so this is something that we will revisit, and especially the more that you can share with us the kinds of topics, whether they be about you as a person, if they're about your business, we want to hear about that. So we want to continue to bring relevant programming here. We got one more thing to share, but real quick, a round of applause for Neal and Melissa for being here today.
thank you.
So as I mentioned, we've got usually at least one event a week happening here for entrepreneurs. So a week from today, we have our monthly happy hour. So that's in the cafe right behind this wall here. So you're welcome to join us for that. The fourth Thursday of every month is free co-working day. So if you are not a member at the co-working level, please come check that out. Give it a spin. Bring a friend if you want to, but you can see all the benefits that we have when you get to co-work from here. Also on February 22nd, we have the Nashville Black Innovation and Entrepreneurship Day. That's happening here at 4 p.m. And then a week after that, a special fifth Thursday this month, on a very short month, we have a healthcare event. So leaping into the future of healthcare happening also in this room at 4 o'clock. You can sign up for all of these at ec.co/events. And then one of our newest series, which is a lot of fun, it always happens on the first Thursday of the month, but on March 7th, we have Cereal with a Cereal. So on that back bar there, we fill it with about 8 or 9 different kinds of cereals. So Fruity Pebbles, Frosted Flakes, Cheerios, whatever your favorite stuff is, come grab a bowl of cereal, and then I get to interview a cereal entrepreneur. And so on March 7th, it's going to be Sherry Deutschman, who founded Letter Logic and has also gone on to found Brain Trust. So she'll tell her story. My only requirement for those I interview is be honest. They share numbers, ups, downs, all around. So it's something that if you want to hear from somebody who's done it more than once, then come join us there. Again, our team wants to hear about this event and what you thought. So you can keep up with what we're doing here in our newsletter, so our Good Company newsletter, and then also we've got a survey as well that you can scan and tell us what you thought. We'll email out a copy of that as well. Like I said, we'll send along some stats that Tina Phillips had researched as well, so you see a bit of that. So Neal and Melissa would love to talk to you. So if you have questions, you want to ask them, they're going to hang around. We've got more food. We do have brownies, maybe not 15 anymore. I don't know. But please enjoy this. And again, thank you all for coming out. We appreciate that you're here.